college professors have read it. What's your "I'm surprised you made it out of high school" story? Not a college professor, but I worked in my university's writing center for a while. I had a girl come in with a research paper bibliography that listed my mom as a source several times. When I pressed, she told me her mom looked up everything and sent it to her, and she just put it in the paper. She told me she had always done it that way. That's awesome. I was picturing not so much that her mom looked things up, but she just asked her mom about facts. What was life like in the 80s? Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And would you say there was a big counterculture movement in the 80s? Oh, definitely. It was definitely because having multiple phone lines in the house was becoming more common, so children could talk to each other directly. Parents had no idea who their kids' friends were. Thanks, Mom! Due to dropping costs of landline telephone services, children and teens of the 80s could communicate with one another directly without parental vetting of children. Mom, 2021. Not me, but a friend who taught in the politics department received a paper about guerrilla warfare in South America. It was so poorly written she couldn't tell if it was a typo, or if they genuinely thought Colombia had been overrun by a Planet of the Apes-style revolution. I once got an exam essay that mentioned how much Mandela hated the Jews. After scratching my head for a bit, and wondering if I'd missed some obvious signs of his anti-Semitism, I realized she meant Mengele. As in Joseph Mengele, the Nazi angel of death. Hard to think of a worse person she could have confused him for. Sounds like it could be an autocorrect. It was a handwritten essay. There have been disturbingly high numbers of students on a performance-based music degree who can't read music. Not musicologists or conceptual composers who could in theory get away with it. No, these were people turning up expecting to study Western classical performance. There was even a master's student once. In the final year of high school, I had to intervene during a practical exam when a student attempted to heat a plastic petri dish of water using the blue flame of a Bunsen burner. That student is a PE teacher now. Once had identical twin sisters who turned in identical essays. Both were directly plagiarized from a Google search and received identical zeros. My first year teaching, I had a student who had failed the previous year due to missing too many cooking labs to pass and not handing in half the assignments. I had rewritten the curriculum and assignments. I noticed that this student hadn't been handing certain things in and had been skipping my lectures, so I decided to have a chat with them. They thought their marks for that semester were cumulative with their previous year's mark, with a different curriculum, different assignments, and a different professor. So they just had to make up enough marks to get a passing grade. This is a post-grad program. They had a BSc in dietetics. Not a professor, but an undergrad, I had a sociology course where we had to do a group presentation about different types of family structures. We divided the work by tasking each group member A with creating a slide on a subtopic for our PowerPoint. When it came time to practice, I had everyone send me their slides so I could put it together into one file. I noticed right away that something was off when a group member's slide had gems like, "Women's suffrage has destroyed the American family structure," and "Feminism has turned women away from their naturally obedient nature." What a fact? I asked to meet with the group member about why the hell his slide was a misogynistic rant, especially for a joint presentation in a group of 4 women at a pretty liberal school. Even if he believed this bullshit, there's no way he thought it wouldn't backfire in a presentation in front of the whole class. Well, I met with him, and he sheepishly admitted that he had just Googled American family structure and copy and pasted from the first website he saw. He didn't realize it was offensive. He hadn't read anything on the slide that he had just sent to the group to present. I didn't believe him at first, but I found the website that he used, and he quite literally just copied from some random angry incel's personal website. It was a group grade, so I just ended up doing his slides for him. He read what I gave him verbatim, and we got an A. I took the grade and was relieved to never work with him again. Not exactly copy and paste it, but my French teacher in high school told us once how a student used Google Translate to write his French essay, except he apparently didn't check what language he set it to and turned in a whole essay written in very poor Spanish. This must be a common dumb student problem since I've heard similar stories from other language teachers. Not a professor but an undergrad, I was taking an American history course. Our professor was from Maryland and was probably in her early 40s. This kid asked her if she was one of the Pearl Harbor survivors. He couldn't grasp the fact that she was very much not alive at that time and that Pearl Harbor was not a harbor in Maryland. Not a professor, but as a college freshman I took advanced English with a student who didn't know how to write a research paper or even possibly read, I don't know. When I realized she didn't know how to research, I gave her my sources and showed her how to navigate them. The next class, when we were supposed to edit each other's rough drafts, I handed her my paper to edit. She gave it back to me after 10 seconds without reading it and said it was good. She then handed me her paper, and it was just a list of random dates. I feel your pain. Once I made the mistake of letting a classmate borrow my finished paper to see the structure and how to organize the sources. She copied my entire work and changed 2 or 3 words because she didn't know how to do it on her own and didn't want to try. I needed to email our professor with proof that it was my work and the whole situation was a mess. I never did it again. She made me develop some serious trust issues. My wife has had multiple students who are fundamentally technologically illiterate. Numerous students have had no idea how to use Word or Excel, including one who used their email as a word processor. The university provides students with Office. There have also been students who struggle with installing programs on computers. What's disconcerting is it's becoming an increasingly common issue as an older millennial. The idea that kids are becoming less technologically proficient is so bizarre. I'm unfortunately not surprised. Back when I was at the uni we had a IT 101 class which bored me to hell and back because I've been tinkering with PCs since I was a kid. Thanks Dad for that. Love. However, for many of my peers this class was clearly vital because they had zero understanding on how to do extremely basic things. For example, one exercise we had to do was this. 1. Create a folder. 2. In said folder create 3 folders. 3. Leave the first empty. Put an image called image.jpg in the second and a text file called text.txt in the last. 4. Compress the whole structure in a zip file and send it to the teacher via email. Overall something that takes 3 minutes. 5. If you're triple checking things out like I do. Well, by the end of the class, an hour and a half long, a lot of my peers still weren't done with the exercise as they didn't know how to open Paint to create the image file, how to access the contextual menu, etc. Thing is, I graduated in 2017, not 1987. You'd think they'd have mastered that stuff to AT, and yet. I teach at a community college that doesn't actually require a high school diploma to attend, so I've seen a lot. Mostly it's native English speakers who are virtually illiterate. No abstract or critical thinking skills at all. One wrote a paper about the causes of the Salem witch trials. She sided with the accusers because she'd seen some stuff, clearly not understanding the assignment. Another insisted I approve every word he wrote to make sure he was doing it right, when in reality he was wanting me to feed him answers since he didn't do the reading. Yet another wrote in a discussion board about Lord of the Flies. I like how they saved all the flies. That was my favorite part. If you've read the book, you can guess the look on my face. I was unfortunately friends with a girl who wrote a book report on the Wild Children Like Your Flies guy. The worst part is she didn't believe me when I, a guy who had actually read the book, told her that there was no part of the book where they put on disguises and act like nobles to break in somewhere. Also, my entire class, and seemingly the teacher, thought that at the end of the book they escaped to America. Someone even cited that they had said a few times in the book that they wanted to go to America. They go to Finland. They very specifically, and explicitly, go to Finland at the end. I really don't know how basically no one else in my class actually finished the book. I once spent an hour explaining to college junior that an even number is divisible by 2. For a couple years I taught first-year college students in an engineering program, the majority of whom didn't know how to do unit conversions. Not even, like, inches to centimeters. To repeat, college. Engineering. My ex was an engineer. They pretty much let everyone into the program and difficult classes just to collect tuition and let them fail out. They prided themselves on how hard the school was, but in reality it was just padded by people who shouldn't have been accepted. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.